Hello, my name is RBlair, and today I'm doing my presentation on a piece of archiving software called CollectiveAccess. I'm going to be going over going digital and why, using outdated technology, web access and why that's important, open source software and why that's important, and then the app itself, which is CollectiveAccess. We got an example of a couple of users, the basics of it, expanded features, content mapping, couple video demonstrations for you, and then the conclusions we can reach from that. Okay, why are we going digital? Archives are increasingly going digital in the information age. We've seen that more now than ever with the COVID-19 pandemic. The fact that no one could go in to see archives or museums and are still locked out in a lot of cases. A lot of them are having to make digital repositories so people can use the archives in any way. So what's the problem with that? I'm sure we've all come across that. Outdated technology, right. So you can see over here I've got a picture of Archivist Toolkit that had its last update in 2013. That's almost 8 years ago. The interface here was built for how programs looked and functioned back in Windows XP, just looking at like the functionality of it, how the menus look, how the windows look. It's very outdated. So some technologies that archives commonly use have been in place since the 2000s or the 1990s with little or no change. This is a problem considering most of us, when we're doing our archiving, are going to be working on machines that are 10 to 20 years newer than that. And like we all know, when you try to run an older program on a newer machine, you get a lot of problems. Things don't run right or they don't run at all. So this legacy software, which is just older software that doesn't have support anymore from the companies, or even if it does, it's not updating anymore, can cause a lot of problems when you're working on a newer system. Web access is extremely vital when you're talking about a modern application. That just means it's something you can get to through your web browser rather than just having access through downloading a program onto your computer. The reason that's important is because users will have to have a desktop or a laptop machine in front of them in all likelihood, and they're going to be locked down to that machine. They can't do it from mobile devices like a cell phone or a tablet. That also means you're going to have a lot more training. That can deter new users and users that maybe don't have the same training as like someone with a master's degree in archiving might. So that doesn't only include the people that are our patrons, our users. That also includes us, the archivists ourselves, because just by the tools of our trade, we are not trained to be software programmers or database engineers in most cases. So say we have to use a program that uses something like FileMaker, or we're having to learn Python for this, or MySQL or something, that can take years just to learn those things by themselves. So having it on the web and having it usable is a lot more cost effective, because you could, like a lot of bigger organizations do, hire separate tech workers to do like your back-end programming, but not everyone has the money or the time or the man hours for that. So smaller community archives can get left behind, frankly. Explained in more simple terms, when digital collections age, they age almost in the same way that a physical collection can. It's called digital degradation or data decay. So the physical item, my example was, it's a photograph sitting on a shelf or in a display case. Even the most perfect of circumstances, the right atmospheric conditions, temperatures, climate control, everything, it's still going to deteriorate. So the rust forming, the pages yellowing and tearing, mold growing, that's actually kind of similar to what happens with your digital records as they age. It's not a physical thing that's aging, but say you've got a VHS tape performance art from like 20 years ago. If you have that tape in front of you or in your archive, most people are going to have a really hard time finding something to play it, to view that VHS tape, because VCRs in working condition that don't need repairs or aren't owned by specialists or conversion companies are far and few between. So what you're going to end up having to do is take it to a specialist to convert, buy a VCR or find someone that has one and hope that no damage occurs to the tape while you're converting it, like the tape tearing, or that once you get that tape out, you find out, oh, look inside, it's full of molds, the tape is eaten up or it's been demagnetized and you've lost a lot of that data, you lost some of that video. The same thing can happen with a file that you have saved. So say you have the information on this tape saved separately into a program that maybe is from like that same era, like 1997, 98, 2000. When you try to open that on a modern machine, you can corrupt the data. Every time you convert it to a different format, you have a little bit of decay. Finding new software and converting it, hoping no conversion or no corruption occurs, is your only option other than straight up abandoning it. So what kind of archiving software do we need to be moving towards? Open source software is the answer. To explain open source software simply, it's that the code that thing is made of, that program, that software, whatever you have, is just open for anyone to be able to access. That's important because say I've got all my information stored in this program, right? This program is owned by, let's say, Google. The unthinkable occurs, Google goes out of business. I don't have my information anymore. It's gone because Google owns all of the source code for that. If I had been using open source software, that code's still out there, I've still got access to it, and usually developers pick up, just regular everyday people, or another company even, can pick up that code, and you can still use it indefinitely, essentially. Another thing to look for in useful archiving software is built-in components. These are a couple things that you'd really want to look for. Metadata standards built in, locked in. Integration with Library of Congress, other important standardized organizations that we deal with in this field. Built-in search engines, because it is actually very difficult to code those if you don't have experience doing that. And web access on the front and back end, and the most important thing is something that can convert those files that you have from legacy programs. So you've got that program from 1997, you need to move to something that has something built into it that can convert those into something you can use now. And on the side over here, I just have a picture of GitHub. It's a commonly used site for collaborative coding and open source software. The program I found and have really liked is called CollectiveAccess. It's free open source cataloging software made by a company called Whirligig. It's currently in use by a lot of museums and libraries across 5 continents. There's a couple examples I have done here of places that have used them or using them currently. The Crest Collection, New York State Archives Digital Collections, and the Isamu Noguchi Cataloging Raison. So what's so great about this? You can see first off, right in there, the MARC records are built in. That is so much easier than jumping into that Library of Congress website, in my opinion. Just seeing like, oh, okay, here's where the title goes, here's where the publication information goes, here's where our physical descriptions are. This is so much easier for someone that wouldn't have the same kind of training that someone that's taken cataloging courses does, or even someone that has that might have a bit more difficult time remembering every coding, right? This is going to be a lot easier. So this program also has a developer community both on forums on their website and a Slack channel for real-time discussions. So this is somewhere where you can work directly with developers and ask questions if you have confusions about something or you're trying to make something work. There's like a community you can talk to about this, which is so vital when you're dealing with software. This is what it looks like right here whenever you're looking at the logs. That's a very important thing I'm going to get to in a second. So you add in information into those fields that were on the last page, right? You can put in metadata, photos, videos, audios, and even 3D scans. Conditions and copyright notices, relationships and administrative metadata, and then a summary. The thing I want to talk about is the logs. So this program keeps a log of every single change that is made, exactly when it's made and by what user. So say I've got a ton of records. You have multiple archivists in this program working at the same time, and they're changing things concurrently. Maybe you go to sleep, wake up in the morning, something's happened to your records. You don't know what has gone wrong, but something has gone wrong. You can look here and see exactly what was changed and change it back. That is so vital so that you don't lose your time and you have a record of how things have changed over time as well. So you can say, oh, okay, this one hasn't been changed to this standard, or this one is stuck in this standard, and move on from there. They also have a built-in search engine, which is very easy to use. It's kind of about as easy as searching in like a library OPAC system. Another incredibly cool feature of this is it actually lets you drop waypoints on a map. So I work at a library. I had a little book next to me, and I just kind of put that into our system, dropped that right on top of our library. Now I can search on the map, see where that book is that's in my hand, where I'm sitting, click on it, and there's a visual representation of a location and creation important to these events, to these items, right? So for normal everyday people, that gives a really clear picture of, oh, okay, that book came from that library in that city. And you can actually even make like interconnecting lines or like radiuses. You can put big grids out and say like this is the sort of area it was in, or those waypoints. And that's a really cool way to inform people and educate them directly, like if you were in a boardroom with them pointing on a map to where these things came from, but they can explore it themselves. Other features that come in this, we have DAX, Dublin Core, VRA Core, and more standards. They just come pre-uploaded. Library of Congress services are integrated. They have the subject headings just integrated into their system already. Multilingual cataloging capabilities. Batch importing data files, so they can come from Excel, CSV, XML, Mark, which we're familiar with, and you just import those in a batch, which means in bulk, so you don't have to do them one by one by one. Data can be exported, so it comes out to Dublin Core or EAD. This one is amazing. Finding aids can be generated through the program along with information parsed into spreadsheet reports. So you can actually garner information from these into spreadsheets like you're doing a report on it. Cross-editing capabilities, so multiple archivists can log into the same database. It comes with theme libraries for web publishing, so you don't need to worry about hiring a web designer to do absolutely everything if you don't want to. It's very simple to do it yourself. You can make highlight reels of items, timelines, and maps like I showed on the previous slide. And social media components have been integrated into the catalog with commenting, tagging, and rating systems that you can turn on or off. You can also accept and filter user-submitted content and media. So you also have annotation, which is like on YouTube videos, how you used to be able to do annotations. You could sort of make a box somewhere on the video and have it linked to somewhere else. So in one of the examples I have in the videos in a second, there's a repository that has historical costumes, and they actually annotated parts on certain costumes to say like, well, this is this style of beading, and it was like on the sleeve, and this is this style of collar, and it was an annotation on the collar. You could click on that and follow through to more information, which is very interactive and works very well with how people use the internet now. They kind of expect these things. They're also going to have upcoming integration with Bagot Digital Library Standards, Archivematica, and Preservica. And these two are the two videos that I have. They're just short little videos you can watch about how different museums and repositories have used this software. And at the top is a link to the demo version where you can just, it's a sandbox, it's a playground, it gets wiped every night. So if you want to mess with this thing, it's very intuitive, you just go play with it. You can catalog like I was doing where I just had a book beside me, I just put the book fully through. So in conclusion, it's really exciting to see this software starting to get made with ease of access in mind, because archives and museums tend to use these hyper antiquated systems that you almost need a master's degree to understand. So making something that has an easy to use GUI, which is a graphical user interface, like it's visual. You can see what you're working with, and aspects pulled from social media like photo tiling, annotation, dynamic maps and timelines, and things where users can interact, like the commenting and rating systems. You're going to make it so much more appealing to the public, which is something archives really need to work towards. Digital archiving it's going to have to reckon with this change that is coming, and either move towards new systems made by universities that are going to take a lot more training, or use these systems that are more for the everyday person to be able to understand. There isn't, that I found, any scholarly work on open source software other than that some places are using it, some places are using more up-to-date cataloging systems, but I haven't seen anything on anything as modern as this that integrates things like social media. I hope in the future we're going to have researchers look at that, because it's definitely going to make a lot of changes in archiving as we know it. I would definitely recommend going through and playing with this, putting in some of the exercises we did during this class. It's an excellent program to mess with. Okay, thanks for listening. Check it out.